God's creation is so amazing in the season of spring. You can see Him all around you in the sights, sound, and smells. Hear Springtime Shares from Bethany and Carol in this episode of the Pour Out Your Joy podcast. Bethany, I am so excited about spring. Newness of the earth, the birds, the fresh rain, all the good stuff in the spring, except the overpowering smell of skunk, I have to say. That has always been the sign of spring for me. There it is, that overpowering smell of skunk. Like, it's spring. Yes. As I'm holding my nose. How about you? What came to mind for you?
Oh, that's so funny. I did not think of overpowering smell of skunk. I think that's interesting. Maybe you're getting that confused with the farmers. What do they put up? Manure?
Manure?
They put
No.
on the
Or
field?
fertilizer? No.
It's a skunk.
You can't mistake the smell of skunk. It's so bad. It's very strong.
That's funny. I was thinking of all the things that reminded me of spring, and one of them was this little ditty that my sister told me a long time ago, and it goes something like this. Spring is here, spring is sprung, the bird is on the wing. My, how absurd. I thought the wing was on the bird. But I was trying to find out where that came from today. Now, I have to ask you, you have well, he's not in high school anymore, but do you know like the new lingo that kids, I say lingo, that makes me sound really old. Like this, like the phrases kids are using right now. There's a lot of them.
Just a few. Just a few of them.
Okay. So this is one I found, and I was like, this sounds like today. It says, spring is here, the grass is riz. I wonder where the birdie is. They say the bird is on the wing. Now that's a very silly thing. In fact, it's really quite absurd. The wing, of course, is on the bird. But riz is like their new slang for charisma. And it is, so to use that, I was thinking, oh, this sounds like, it's like for now, this time of life. So, but I think it was a little sus of me to think that because
Okay, now I don't know you anymore. You're using words I don't know.
Oh, I love surprising kids when I start saying their slang. They kind of look at you sideways and go, how does she know this? Like, and right. Then I use it in the right context because I work with, teens, youth and stuff. So it's kind of funny, but getting back to spring, Carol, I love spring. It is such a wonderful, beautiful time of year.
What was that reference? Do you have a reference to
that?
I
don't. There's no reference. So, but I've always known that. And I think it might have been in one of those autograph books. Do you remember those autograph books? My parents used to have a couple of those. And it was like what to write in an autograph, like at the end of the year school. And so they'd have these little ditties. And that I think that might have been in one of them. I don't know. I'm guessing.
Well, I have to talk about the birds because I woke up this past week to birds chirping really loudly and beautifully outside my window. Immediately, I thought of the verse about how God takes care of the birds. So I wanted to read that just because it was so prominent in my mind. It was like, whoa. So it's Matthew 6:25 and 28 through 28. Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? I just love that. I love that. It goes on to talk about anxiety and how not to have it. I just feel like that was such a cool way to start the day. I hear these beautiful tones from this robin outside my window, and then that thought pops in. It's like, what a great way to start the day. He takes care of them. How much more valuable are we to him?
Oh, that's a good word. You're right. And how many times do we forget about it, Carol? I was just talking to someone last night about God's faithfulness and in answering prayers. And she said, why do I worry? Why do I get upset? Why do I think he's not going to give me a good place to live? He's given me all the places I've moved. He's given me better than I expected. It's been perfect for that time. And because her and her husband are house hunting. So it's one of those, she says, I don't know why I worry because I know he's going to take care of me. And I have thought that in the past too, because sometimes I think, okay, God, because our timing, we have this deadline, quote unquote, a deadline. It's coming, and we need to
Mhm.
make sure that we are set and prepared and planned for that deadline. And in reality, it's God's timeline and his season. Remember, we're talking
Mhm.
about seasons. And
Yep.
so sometimes I think a lot about winter is very bleak. It can be very
Yes.
long and feel like it's never going to end. And sometimes, if we can look at that the same way, where we're in a situation, we're in a season of our life that seems like it's very long and bleak and there's no hope, we can't see it. And then, like spring, God gives you a little nugget and like a bird, you hear the birds in the morning. Because I feel like that's like the first sign of spring, Carol, is hearing
Mm.
the birds as you wake up, and they're just chitter chattering. They're just so happy. And there could
Mm.
be 6 feet of snow still on the ground,
Yeah.
but they're out there telling you, guess what? Spring's on its way. And
Mhm.
so, just for those that are in a season of maybe bleakness or winter, spring is coming. It is, there's
Mhm.
hope in that. There's joy that this is just a season of time. It's not forever. It's not a lifetime. It's a season. So,
I love that, Bethany. And one of the other verses I came up with too was the Psalm 23, because you're talking about, from bleakness to spring, winter to spring. And it's about, I think of all the words, refreshing, renewing, replenishing, restoring, all those things.
mhm.
And in Psalm 23, it talks about how Jesus, as our shepherd, restores us. And it reads, the snippet is, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. So, again, I just think of the restoration and the refreshingness of spring. And it's like a breath of fresh air, right? I mean,
Yes,
I like that parallel because he walks with us every day and restores us.
he does. I was also thinking of Psalm 1, which I have memorized at a few VBSs in my day. I don't know why this
Woohoo.
particular one is a memorization for it, but it is, I think it's it's 6 verses, so it's kind of short, but it has a lot of meat in it. Psalm 1 says, blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, nor stand in the way of the sinner, or sits in the company of the mocker, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yield its fruit in its season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Not so the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction. And I just thought it talked about seasons and how we're to be planted. And what do we do in the spring? We plant, and so
Mm.
that we receive a harvest. So, spring we plant, summer it grows, and the fall is when it's harvested. So, that's 2 seasons away. So, sometimes what we plant in our hearts now and what we who we decide to spend time with, we've talked about this too, Carol. What we take in
Mhm.
is planted
Yeah.
in us, and whatever fruit comes in its season that time is going to produce? And what is your life producing? Is it producing joy? Is it producing peace? Is it producing faithfulness? Or
Mm.
is there resentment, discontent,
Unforgiveness.
unforgiveness, all of those things. So sow into your life good things that are from God, God's characteristics.
I love that. That is so rich. I wanted to talk too about the sights and the feels of spring because, there's so much happening that time of
Mhm.
year. The first thing I have to share is the popple trees. Some call them poplar trees in our area. They're the first to show their leaves. And before I realized that, I always didn't like them because they would be the ones that would break easily in the wind and be destructive to things around them when a lot of cleanup and all the stuff. It's like, what good are they, And then one spring, I'm like, wait a minute, they're the ones who get their leaves first. And it's such a joy to see that pop of green on the trees.
Mhm.
So I just love that about the trees. And of course, the flowers, the beauty and the color and the types and the sizes. I think of Genesis too. I found this verse, Genesis 1:11 and 12. And God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind on the earth. And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds, and trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. So I just love that because there's so many good things coming up out of the ground. And, the flowers themselves are so beautiful. All the intricate designs of each flower and the smells. If
Mm.
you think about the smells of each flower, so detailed.
Yes. It's so God's plan, and it is good.
It is so good. I know my problem is I want to buy all the flowers. It's like I don't have that enough money to buy all the flowers. There's a lot of kinds.
Well, Carol, some things I start from seed now in the
Mm,
early spring, and they can be replanted in gardens. I was thinking about raised garden beds just this week because I have a few at my old house, and I was thinking, oh, I should make some for this house now, and I could plant. And so my mind went to wander like, oh, I could do this and I could do that. My
mm,
favorite flower to plant in my garden is a zinnia, and they get so big. And you're right, they have all multiple colors, and they're really good cutting flowers. So when they start blooming, usually at the end of July, beginning of August, they're kind of a later flower. I
mhm.
can do a whole big bouquet, put them in the kitchen, and they last for like a week or more because they don't droop really fast. Some flowers you'll pick them and they just don't last. Not a zinnia, and they're just so colorful. I used to bring some to work and put them on my desk because I just brought a little bit of nature inside because I didn't have a window my last job.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Hydrangeas are that way too. I love hydrangeas because they're different colors too, and they last. You cut them and they'll last longer in the house.
they
And
could
there's
last through
things
the
to
winter,
use.
don't they?
Well, yeah, and then you can keep them all year round.
Because don't they
Um,
dry? They dry really well, I thought.
yes,
Okay.
yes, they do. It's another
Mm,
good attribute of them. But yeah, I love that. All the different kinds. I mean, think about the lilacs come up first too, or they bloom pretty early.
mhm, mhm,
Mm, And that smell, oh my gosh, the aroma. We had a huge lilac bush at one place I lived, and it was purple on one side and white on the other because there were two plants. And it just became, I mean, it was probably like 10 feet tall at
mhm.
least. And the smell of that, I just wanted to just hang out by the lilac bush and just breathe in that wonderful fragrance.
I also think of the peony, which comes early June. That's my favorite. I say zinnias are my favorite. Now, I'm specifying that's my favorite one to put in my garden for for cutting. That's a
Yes.
late summer. Peonies are early spring
Mhm.
into summer. It depends on how early of a spring we have.
Yeah, do you say peony or
I
peony?
I say peony, but yes, some people say peony. I guess it just
I
depends.
wonder what is the
Maybe it's a regional regional thing.
it could be.
But I don't think I was contemplating living in a southern state for a brief period of time, and that was the one thing I was thinking about was, do peonies grow in the South? And I
Mm,
think I found out they don't, and so that was kind of a deterrent for me because I like living in the northern states because we get things like rhubarb. Rhubarb requires a cold. Isn't that an interesting thing? Peonies, I think, need like a cold. So it's interesting that there are certain things that need a season of cold or desolation to bloom beautifully and come out just smelling lovely or looking beautiful. And sometimes God takes us through that season so that we can come looking beautiful or smelling sweetly. I don't know. That's just something I was
I
thinking about too.
I love that correlation. That is really good. It's true. And the beauty that comes out of it.
Hmm.
Um, I have peonies. Now I don't know what to say. Peonies. I have those pretty flowers
Hmm.
that start with a P, and they're white, pink, and kind of a deep pink, and they just bring me so much joy because of the look of them and the smell. I
Yeah.
love bringing one in the house. It permeates the rooms in my house, and
They
it's
look
strong.
so delicate. And if a flower can be feminine, which some can, oh my word, it's the most feminine, delicate, romantic flower. I love the white ones. Those are my favorite.
Mm.
And a big bouquet of those. I actually bought a peony bush last year because I really wanted a white one. I had a light pink one. I have had the fuchsia colored one, but I have not had a white one. So I'm excited to see what that looks like this spring.
Fun.
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, let's talk about some of the things that might not be perceived as nice things like rain and wind in the spring. My gosh, we had such strong wind here the other day. Everything was blowing around. I had stuff from the neighbors in my yard. I had, like it was strong, right? But the cool thing about the wind, I always think of this kite flying. When I was
Mm.
young, I finally got what was everybody had, and I never had one. It was a puffer kite. The kind you blow up. I don't know if you remember those, but
I have never heard of it. What?
yeah,
Tell us more.
it's like a plastic kite, but you blow it up, and it's like any other kite. In the old days, they had the actual wood and paper. But yeah, this was it was just really fun, and everybody had one but me. It seemed
Oh,
like when you're a
uh,
kid, everybody's got one. Why can't I have one? But anyway, I got one finally one year, and it was super fun. My son had a kite when he was little, and we would go out and have so much fun with that kite. And it was like the shape of I think it was a frog kite. It had a huge tail on it, so like a kite tail.
mhm.
It was just fun to watch that thing, and he loved it, and we played in the yard and ran around trying to get that thing up in the air, and then when we finally did, there was just so much joy, and we finally were like, "Woo!" celebrating and just having a good time, and it was just joyful times using the wind, like something that can be kind of a nuisance for some is really can be a joyful thing, especially in the springtime when it's warm enough to go outside. You might need a windbreaker,
Mhm.
but it's so fun to just embrace it and do something fun.
If you think about wind is really important to, I think, for thawing things out like snow. If you have a warm day and it melts a lot of the snow, the wind comes behind that sometimes and it helps to draw out that moisture into the air. And I think back on Noah and the ark, and I wonder how many windy days there were at that point when they were resting, waiting to get off the ark. But God probably had to send wind in order to get all that water out so they could come out of the ark. And I'm like, wow, I wonder what those windy days were like. Because you're right. In the spring, there's so much wind and you hear it whistling through whatever, the trees. And
Well,
yeah.
here's my funny thought. I think Noah was really happy for the win because I'm thinking all those animals probably had a lot of jobs in there and open the windows and get that wind blowing through.
Oh,
I
it's
bet
so
they were really
funny.
thankful, Bethany.
Probably. I had not thought of that. Oh, and then I personally, about rain, I really love rain. We had a rainy day a couple weeks ago, and it was a Sunday. So I got home from church and I was kind of sleepy. And so I went and took a nap. And it was the best nap because I could hear the rain and the rain was just coming, coming, coming. And I was snuggled in my bed and I was like, this is the best nap ever. Because it was a Sunday afternoon nap. Those are perfect, right? Who can beat
Mm,
them? And then
yeah.
I love the smell of rain.
Mm,
I don't
mm-hmm.
know if you smell the rain, but you can just, I smell it. I'm like, oh, either rain is coming or it had just rained. And it's so good.
Agreed. Agreed. I love that. And I also agree with just sitting there and hearing the rain pouring down or lightly coming down. I remember too, okay, I have to share another story. I was a little girl and I had a ladybug umbrella.
Mm,
Love my ladybug umbrella. There's many kids who would just look for those fun looking umbrellas.
yeah.
And then, of course, the wind broke it because, I used it pretty hard. And then the wind broke it. I still tried to use it because I didn't want to get rid of it. So I kept that thing, even though it was a little gimpy looking and didn't work so well, but I had to keep it because I love that thing.
Oh, that's special.
Yeah, but I do love the rain. Have you ever jumped in a puddle as an adult?
An adult, maybe not as much as when I was a kid. I love to go out in the rain and run in the rain. Our driveway was rock, so it wasn't tar or anything. And so over the course of like a year, it would fill in like these holes, these like big potholes at the end of the driveway. So they were great. When the rain would come, all the water would collect there. And then
Mm-hmm.
I would want to run outside either barefoot or with my galoshes
Mm-hmm.
and or my wellies, depending what you call it. You run out there and you jump and jump and jump. My mom would always warn me because she would say, be careful, you're going to get a sore throat. And it was so
Oh,
uncanny. I would always it could be the middle of summer. And I was such one of those kids, whimsical, I would say, would want to run out there. And my mom would be like, well, be careful. I don't want you to get a sore throat. And every time I get a sore throat, Carol. So I remember I would have to think about like, do I really want to do this? Because I don't want a sore throat. I hate it, sore throats.
mm,
So,
yep. I know.
but I
Dang,
love
sometimes
doing
those
that.
fun things that kids want to do, there's
I need
repercussion.
I needed your I needed your ladybug umbrella. That would
Yes,
help.
you did. You probably needed your, what'd you call them? Not galoshes, but
Wellies.
whimsies?
Wellies.
Wellies. Okay.
That's an English term for rain boots. We call them rain boots, but well, doesn't wellies sound very cute? Like I'd much rather
Yes, it
use
does.
wellies or galoshes. Galoshes comes from I think Tasha Tudor and Benjamin Buddy and what is his name? Peter Cottontail. I think they talk
Okay.
about galoshes and tamarans and weird, funny
Yes.
little things like that.
Yeah, it's more of a traditional old
I
school
also
thing.
I also think of Tasha Tudor. I didn't really find any. I could not find her books, but she has a time to keep, which goes through every month of the year. So she starts in January and she ends in December. And she
Oh,
talks about each of the months and what they did growing up. It was so fun. And she has a whole section on springtime. And if you ever get a chance to read her books, the illustrations are gorgeous, and she does them
Mm,
herself, and they're just so good. So,
I love that.
oh no, I'm okay. Time out. I got that wrong. So Beatrix
Start
Potter,
over.
not Tasha Tudor. I'm gonna make that correction right now. So Tasha Tudor
Okay.
is one A Time to Keep. She does a whole bunch of different books. She has one about poems, and she talks about her life growing up. And then Beatrix Potter has Peter Cottontail and Benjamin Bunny, and they talk about galoshes and tamarins and fun things like that. So I just want to clarify that.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Well, and we can't like not forget to mention after a rain too. We forgot this. You get the rainbows.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily a spring thing, but it's a beautiful, beautiful thing that comes after a spring rain.
I love rainbows. I like thunderstorms too. I can watch a thunderstorm. My dad and I used to sit out on the deck and watch the thunderstorms come in growing up as a kid, and it was so fun. I love doing that. I still like to watch.
Thunder and lightning. Thunder and lightning.
Yeah,
Some of my favorite things in the
I know.
spring. That first thunderstorm. Oh my gosh. You're just like, was that a rumble? Oh, quick, get outside. See if you can find the lightning and watching the sky light up with all of the lightning bolts and oh my gosh, so cool. Until it gets too scary, then you go in. If it's a really bad one.
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes I'll watch from the window, and there are times when I probably should have been in the basement. But I used to have a long stairway to the basement. I used to sit in the stairwell when there would be really bad storms and you'd hear the sirens or whatever. But I would have a window at the top of the stairs, and I would look out of it. It was like a door to the back door, and I would just look out at it and be like, "Oh, look at the wind!" I mean, you just can see it taking the trees and crazy stuff. So, but I have a verse from Zechariah, Zechariah 10:1. Ask the Lord for rain in the springtime. It is the Lord who sends the thunderstorms. He gives showers of rain to all people and plants of the field to everyone. That's good because it talks about everybody. There's also a verse that says that, it rains on the just and the unjust. I love that. That's really good. I was on a walk this week, Carol, and I saw a robin. He was right in front of me and so close. And he like went across the road I was walking on, and he like goes in, but he was so close, and then he flew away. And then I don't know about you, but I remember growing up and my parents would say, "Oh, look at there's an eagle." And eagles were endangered when I was younger. They're off the endangered list now, but there was very few times you would see an eagle.
Mm.
And now, Carol, I see eagles all the time and they're low. So the other day I was driving in my car and an eagle came right down in front of my car and I think there was like a marsh or something and he was going in the marsh. But it's so close, and God refers to us as eagles, and you can always tell an eagle by their flight pattern. They soar and glide. It's effortless. They don't really flap their wings very much when
Mhm.
they're circling. So if you see
Yes.
something circling really, and they can go so high in the sky, it is amazing to watch them. And I just think God refers to us as an eagle. We will rise like the eagle. We will not grow weary. We will not grow faint. And it's almost effortless. It looks effortless for them to glide and fly almost like butter. Just
Yeah.
it's just beautiful. And so I just think that's a good analogy of how God sees us, that we'll be like the eagle, just soaring high, gliding.
Majestic. Yeah, I love
Mhm.
that. One time I saw an eagle when we were fishing, and it came right by our boat and took a sunfish right out of the water.
Oh, that's so cool.
I know. I'm like, "Did you see that? Oh my gosh." It was so cool. I love that though, and there's so much truth in that. And
The other thing I wanted to think about is spring is all about new birth. It's new life. And God is the God of rebirth and new life.
The words: refresh, restore, renew.
Yes, yes. And there was a verse that I wanted to read about that because it talks all about, it says in Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will.
Love it. Renewing your mind.
I have one more verse. It's the eagle verse. I found it. Isaiah 40:31. But they who wait for the Lord will renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And that also reminded me of the eagle because God will renew your strength.
Nice. Oh, I love that. That's such a good summary of what we're talking about. Hey, wouldn't it be cool to list a few things that people can do in the springtime before we sign off?
And will bring them joy.
And will bring them joy. Absolutely. That's got to be in there.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, the first thing I think of is going for a walk on a sunny day and taking in, absorbing that sunshine, because in the spring it feels so good after we were talking about the bleak winter, and you get outside and you just feel that sun. Man, I did that the other day. I was letting my dog out and I stepped outside and I was like, power sun. And I just sat in a chair for about 5-10 minutes and just
Mm,
took in the sun because it feels so good. It's so, I would say, restoring, like it,
mhm.
especially if you're tired and weary, makes you feel good.
I would piggyback on that when you're out for that walk and enjoying that sun. Notice your surroundings. Look at things that you would just power by. So look at cloud formations. Look at what the grass is doing. Look for birds. Look for little
Mm,
critters. The little squirrels are out in abundance. They're running around. They're always busy. The squirrel is a busy, busy creature.
love that.
Um, just look for the first dandelion. That's always fun. I like to
Mm,
see the first robin, the first
mm.
dandelion.
Yes.
I love watching all of the brown turn to green. Oh, and this is the best thing. Okay, this is something I wanted to talk about because you were talking about the leaves coming on the trees. So every spring there is at least one or maybe 2 days where all the buds are on the trees. And do you know the crayon box? You know all the colors, they're named different things, right? There is a
Hmm.
color in the color box. It's called spring green. And that is the color that happens right before the leaves burst out. Okay. So
Huh.
it's this very tiny, tiny day. It's usually a day. And I love it when it's like overcast and kind of dark. Like if there's rain coming, that
Mm.
juxtaposition between those dark blue clouds and that light spring green is gorgeous. And I look for it every spring. It's actually something I have learned to look for because it's such a short, fleeting time. So I would challenge everyone, look for that juxtaposition of that just ready to burst out into leaves and
Mm.
that not quite there. And oh, that is the best color. And oh, it's so beautiful. It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite things about spring.
I love that. And I didn't know that. I did not realize that there was that little window of time where you can look for that. I have two things. One is the first fresh cut grass smell is the best in my mind for smelling good things in the spring. And then the other thing just happened to me yesterday. I'm driving home from Bible study and I make my turn towards my house and I hear the frogs. The frogs are chirping. And you guys, if you don't, have you never heard that before? It's kind of a orchestra of little chirps, and it's I lived in a place in the country and it was deafening because it was so quiet and there were so many because we had a creek. It was like, I gotta get out of here. I couldn't hear anything but them. It was almost like a bad movie or a scary movie. It's a beautiful sound of those frogs chirping, and that's a definite sign of spring. So look for that. Listen for that, I should say.
Put your kid eyes on when you're out walking in the spring. Kids will see things that we adults miss. And so sometimes I like to just think of what I was a kid. What did I like and what did I see that I don't see as an adult? Those are really important. Go to a park, a new park. Check out a new park. That would be a suggestion for
Mm,
springtime. If you
that's a
like
good
to
one.
walk, go to a new place and walk
Ooh,
around. What?
yeah, and lay down in the park and look at the cloud formations, like you mentioned earlier. Like when you lay down, it's so fun to just let time go by and just watch the clouds move, especially on a little breezy day, and just watch them
Oh,
move and reform into something new. That's a fun thing. And I love your idea of put on your kid eyes.
Oh, yeah, I totally remember laying in our field. We called it a field. It was a small patch of earth next to our house that the kids in the neighborhood would come over and play at. But I would lay in the summertime, Carol, and I would watch the clouds go by. And oh, I love that. I have not done that in a while. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do
There you
that. That's
go.
going to be my bucket list challenge for myself this summer, spring. I'm going to watch the
Okay.
clouds go by.
Just wait for the ground to get dry.
Don't sit in a puddle. Lay in a puddle.
Well, the frost comes
Oh,
out and then it's kind of wet, it's kind of damp and then you got to wait.
it's true. What else? What other
Mm.
things could people do this spring?
Another thing is I thought of was rock skipping when you're down there looking at all the waterfowl. Make sure they're not in the way, but rock skipping would be really fun to do. I mean, that's a fun thing, just trying to skip those rocks on the water.
We used to do that, and the Mississippi was really near. We had this little park we would go to, and my dad would skip rocks. And I remember thinking as a kid, I can never do that as much as dad. And we would count the skips. And
Mhm.
sometimes it would almost skip across to the other side of the river. I remember he could get that such a spin on that. And that was like always my dream was to be able to skip rocks like my dad because he had a really good arm. And I remember to this day we still like to skip rocks. Or have you ever played poo sticks, Carol? Do you know what poo
Oh,
sticks is?
no.
Okay, so Christopher Robin and the Enchanted Forest with, Pooh and Piglet and Eeyore and Little Roo and all those rabbit and owl. Okay, so Pooh made up this game. You all get a stick and it has to be different. And if you are by a bridge, this is the best thing. So you all drop it in on one side, and whoever stick reaches the other side first is the winner.
Oh,
Best game
fun.
ever. I
Wait a minute.
love poo sticks.
Pooh came up with
Like
this?
like Winnie the Pooh. This was actually I think they didn't necessarily do this in the movie. I think it was actually in the book
Okay.
of Pooh, Winnie the Pooh. And yes, they would play poo sticks. So they all get different kinds of sticks and they put it on one side. You have to kind of watch the water flow. So you make sure that the water's flowing under the bridge in the right
Oh,
direction. So you'll want to go on
yeah.
that side that it's flowing under.
That
But
is
that
so
is
cool.
and it's super fun. It's great when the water isn't really moving that fast. So, and if it's a wide bridge, it's really fun because like then you don't know whose is coming out. You think you all guess. You're like, oh, so and so is going to be the winner, and then you go and it's like not like the same one. So it's really fun. I love that
Okay.
game.
Okay, everybody, go and get your poo stick and go find a bridge.
And you can play it over and over again. And kids love it. Kids really love that.
That's great.
Carol, the other
Yeah.
thing I have is when was the last time you skipped? Not run, not walked fast, not power walk, skipped.
Oh my gosh, I can't remember. That would have been probably out of my memory banks. Maybe 5 years ago with a kid.
Okay, so skipping is so fun. So this spring, I want to see skipping people. I want to see people skipping. And my challenge to all of you is do some skipping. It will make your heart glad. It will bring you joy.
I love it. You know, I see kids catching frogs too, like talking about frogs earlier. It's kind of fun to watch them hop. We have a road that we walk on, and it's where it's kind of a low-lying area, and the frogs leap out in the springtime. It's usually early summer actually, and they start hopping all over the place. My dog goes nuts. He tries to catch them, and he doesn't quite get there in time. But it's so fun to watch them, you know, and then the kids around here, they try and catch them, and they just have a good time. I don't know. I think the park is just such a great idea for seeing all the activity of everybody moving around too, and the kids coming out and everybody discovering new things, you know, in a community format too.
And the other thing is, my mom used to take us on expeditions. She would kind of prep us the night before, and she would say, "We're going on an expedition." And I just remember some of the fun things we used to do. So, challenge for those listening. If you have kids, tell your kids you're going on an expedition tomorrow. If it's a windy day, take kites. I loved your idea of kites. Go fly kites. Go to a park. Say, we're going to do a nature walk. We're going to see what's out there in nature, and just have them. Sometimes you have to actually just be intentional about looking for things. Sometimes we just go and we do our walk or we do our exercise, and then that's it. That's all we get. But if you intentionally say, I'm going on this walk or I'm going on this run, and I'm going to intentionally look for things in nature that are going to bless me, I think kids are good for that too. They'll help you see things that you don't see. But if you're an adult, go fly a kite. It is the most exhilarating, fun thing.
I was just going to say, you are never too old to fly a kite, and it's fun.
And they're pretty cheap right now. I feel like they're like Walmart has them for like $4.99 or something. And those little plastic ones, I know they're like superheroes or butterfly, but it's okay. It's fun to be like a kid again and get those whimsical things back into your life. They bring you joy.
Kites are not that expensive, so it's an easy thing to do to get some joy, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Oh, to piggyback on my take your kids on an expedition, maybe do a picnic. I know it's early in the year, but I think picnics are super fun too.
Yeah, and there are some warmer days in the spring where you can definitely be warm enough to have an early picnic for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last thing I can think of here is going to a lake and just watching all the birds and the migrating birds and the waterfowl, and just how they even play, you know, they're playful, and it's just fun to watch the animals.
Water renews my spirit. I know that when I go to the beach, or if I go to a lake, or I'm by the river, that just renews my soul. There's something about water. It's so refreshing. It is moving. I don't know. I just love water, and it has renewed my spirit. So I agree.
Well, that's a good place to end. Do you have a joy spotlight today?
My joy spotlight today is, I would say, my walk the other day, because I saw the robin, and to me, that's like the first sign of spring is when you see the robins out, and you're always looking for them. And it just hopped right in front of me, and I enjoyed that. It was it brought me much joy, Carol.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. And mine would be the frogs. That sound was just joy to my ears. It was so cool. Well, I guess we're going to sign off until next time. So, pour out
your
joy. Bye-bye.